Hey everyone, welcome back to What Lies Within. We want to tell you thank you so much for being a part of this. We're really excited. It's been a wonderful experience for both of us, and I cannot wait to put out the future episodes that I have in mind. So this week we're going to be covering the rest of the fight and flight responses. Well, really all four of them, because we have fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. Last week we talked about freeze because we got a wonderful submission by an anonymous person, and they wanted us to give a little bit more insight on why they may be shutting down and freezing during conflict. So if you haven't heard that episode, go check that out now. So before we get into it, I just want to tell everyone that's listening that your trauma responses and your fight and flight responses are a part of being human. They don't make you bad. They don't make you weird, weak, anything like that. It's literally just our nervous system, and we're not the only mammals that have the fight and flight response. It is literally how we survive, how we protect ourselves. Now, we do have control over how we act outward towards other people. We do have control over our emotions and managing them, but the fight and flight response is really just automatic. There's nothing wrong with you for having your own. Some people can have one of them. Some people can have all of them. Some people can go through fight, flight, freeze, fawn, all in just one day. And some people will just be flight mode their whole life. So it's really different for everyone, the way they are, their body chemistry, their trauma. There's so many things that come into play when talking about how our nervous system reacts.
The first response that we're going to be going over is the fight response. It's not always physical or aggressive. Most of the time, it's emotional intensity. It's the feeling of needing to defend yourself, prove your point, correct the story, or gain control of the moment. Fight is the response that shows up when your body feels threatened and believes that the only way to stay safe is to push back. It's not necessarily being dramatic, it's a nervous system in survival mode. This can include raising your voice, talking faster, you interrupting because your brain is racing, you feel heat in your chest or your face.
I feel it in my ears.
Yes.
That's the first symptom I get.
You need to fix the misunderstanding immediately. You become hyper-focused on just being understood. That can also cause irritation, just being angry inside. You feel like you're fighting for your life even in small conflicts.
Yes, and that usually stems from having the trauma wound of not being understood, not feeling heard, seen, validated, just being ignored or misunderstood. And so for me, for example, like I said, I feel it in my ears, my heart races, I feel it in my throat. Like literally I feel my pulse in my throat, in my face, and I am very upset. And usually I'm not really upset about the person per se. I'm really just upset because I feel like I'm being misunderstood. And especially when they think something that seems like opposite of what I'm actually trying to say or what I'm trying to do, like what my intention is. So I panic when that happens. And fight isn't my only one. I will share a little bit of how I experience my trauma or fight and flight responses as we go through them.
The second response we're going to be going over is the flight response. The flight response isn't always just running away. It's sometimes just disappearing emotionally. It's avoiding the conversation, the feelings, the confrontation, or even the person. It's not that you don't care, it's that your body thinks the safest thing to do is to escape the intensity, even if the escape is scrolling, cleaning, overworking, or shutting down.
Exactly.
This can include suddenly feeling the urge to take your mind off of something and be busy. It can include avoiding the conversation, having to distract yourself with phone tasks. You ghost or isolate yourself.
Block.
You can replay the conflict in your head instead of facing it, so spiraling. Or you just feel restless, anxious, maybe even trapped.
And the flight response is where you see people just walking away from an argument. And I'm not saying, whenever you can securely say, hey, I need to take a moment, I'm going to step away, we'll have this talk later. That's more, secure and stable.
There's a big difference.
Yeah, there's a big difference. What we're talking about is literally just, hey, I'm divorcing you because we just fought and you made me upset. I'm just gonna leave because I feel like this is too much to handle. Literally just storming off, driving away, not telling your partner or the person that, you're gonna get back to the topic later. You're really just trying to avoid it when you're in flight. Maybe it's too overstimulating. You're doing basically the safest route for you by removing yourself out of the situation, even if the situation requires communication and understanding and to be fixed. You just literally want to remove yourself. And sometimes that can be a good thing, but it really just depends on how you go about it, because sometimes it can be really damaging depending on how you handle that.
It's the difference between taking a break and fully tapping out.
Yes. And this is where you see people get into an argument and they swear, that is the last time that they're ever going to talk to that person because they feel very disrespected. But once the fight and flight response calms down, once their nervous system calms down, they kind of feel like, oh shoot, maybe I overreacted a little bit. I really just left the situation. But I want to remind you again, this comes from needing to feel safe. This is about protecting yourself. Your body and your brain and everything, your nervous system are doing its job in order to protect you. You are taking care of yourself. This is literally survival.
Next, we're going to be going over the freeze response. Freeze is the moment your body shuts down to protect you. Your brain goes blank, your voice gets quiet, you can't make decisions, and you feel stuck inside yourself. You know what you want to say but can't get the words out. It's not coming from weakness, it's your body hitting the pause button because everything feels too overwhelming to process. This can include mentally going blank, struggling to speak and respond. Your body can feel heavy or numb. Your thoughts slow down or stop. You can't really make decisions. You stare off, maybe even disassociating. And you mostly feel disconnected from your own body or mind.
So sometimes when I'm overwhelmed or overstimulated, or I have a lot to think about because of a certain situation, I will literally just pause, dissociate, not be present, not be in this reality at all. My mind is somewhere else. Usually I'll put on a movie or a TV show and just pretend that I'm there instead because it's too much. I don't want to do it. So that's when I find myself freezing the most. It's really just overstimulating and I need time to just really forget about it. And I kind of do that a little bit on purpose. Some people, like the person that submitted last week, she didn't like that she has those freezing moments. So sometimes it really isn't in our control. Sometimes we choose to walk away or to freeze. Sometimes the freezing and the fighting just kind of takes over.
The last response we're going to be going over is the Fawn response. Fawn is a response that keeps the peace at any cost. It's the automatic urge to please, agree, soften, apologize, or make yourself small to avoid conflict. It feels like survival because for many people it was. Fawn isn't being nice. It's abandoning your own needs to prevent someone else's reaction. This can include agreeing even when you don't want to, apologizing just to avoid tension, you downplay your own feelings, you changing your tone to keep the other person calm, you make yourself easy or low maintenance, you have a fear of saying no, and maybe you take responsibility for other people's emotions.
And I think that this one is very much overlooked. A lot of people forget that fawn is a real response. And this one is more like the people-pleasing response. So it's basically just self-abandonment, and it can be very, very damaging to ourselves. the last thing that we should do is abandon ourselves. Really, we should just go within ourselves more and be our own voice and advocate for ourselves. Fawning is not something that I really see myself doing ever. I feel like I've only done that a couple of times with one particular individual because it was a male. I was a little bit frightened, I guess, because they were yelling. So I kind of just, yes, I understand. And I didn't say anything. I just literally shut down. I didn't have a voice, and I was just kind of people pleasing in that situation because I wanted him to just shut up and go away. So I literally that was for my safety. That's what I needed to do, and I'm glad that I did it, because had I gone into my fight with him, it would not have been good. It would have been a really, really tragic situation. Shadow work is very important. Learning what our trauma is, where it comes from, what our triggers are, what our fight and flight responses are, and everything that really just feels icky, the kind of stuff that we want buried, the stuff that we don't really want to face. It's important to actually face it instead of trying to suppress it or run away from it. It kind of seems like a lot of us go into fight or flight with our fight and flight response. We just want to get away from it. We want to fight it instead of just accepting it, allowing ourselves to feel what we feel, embracing it, and growing with it. That is what we need to do in a safe way in order to evolve, to get closer to our highest, most authentic self. We can't really do that, and we can't even really do things like manifest properly if we have these mental and energetic blocks, things that are keeping us stuck, trapped, things that we may play on repeat, fights we may have. And if you don't understand yourself, then you can't really evolve in the best way possible. You can't just leave the darkness behind. You can't leave the dark parts of you and pretend that they don't exist, because they will come back into the surface. They will come back when you're triggered. They'll come back in your fight and flight. They will come back in your relationships. And that's why they say you got to fix yourself. You got to love yourself before you can fully love others. The most important thing in this life is self-love. Self-love and being your best version of yourself. And these things aren't here as your enemy. The fight and flight response is literally there. It is working. It is your nervous system, and it's there to protect you. That is its job. That's why we have it. But we can utilize it. We can grow from it. We can understand why we feel these certain things and what is important to us and what certain things we won't tolerate and what we want to carry on with us as we evolve. But one thing is for certain, we cannot evolve if we leave that behind.
Your trauma experiences are actually tools that you can use to help yourself grow. So you should never feel embarrassed or really shut them down or hide them away, because they are always there and they will always be with you. And the most that you can do is implement them into positive outcomes.
Mm-hmm. Yes. We want to invite you to submit your stories and problems at my website, novarayxo.com. And for those of you that are just listening to the audio, I'm going to spell out my website for you. It is novarayexo.com. On my website, you'll also find my services, and keep checking in with those because I have a lot of things coming up. I have my alchemy library coming up. I have lots of courses, workshops, tools that you can get right on the website. I'm going to have a membership program very, very soon, so stay tuned for that. And we're not really sure what we're doing next week, but I really want to get more into the spiritual side of shadow work. And as we travel through the next few weeks, we're going to be merging some of the shadow work with the energy work. And then later on, as we evolve together, we'll get more into the high vibrational work. So we're really excited. Thank you so much for being here. We're really excited for what's to come.
We hope that you tune in next week on What Lies Within.